Après plus de 20 ans de carrière, le quatuor américain Alter Bridge s'apprête à sortir son 8e album studio le 9 janvier prochain. Un retour annoncé en septembre dernier avec le clip de Silent Divide, marquant la fin d'une pause de 2 ans pour le tandem Myles Kennedy Mark Tremonti, que l'on a pu voir entre-temps défendre leurs projets solo respectifs. Composé de 12 titres, cet album éponyme s'impose dès la première écoute comme une véritable masterclass de puissance, des morceaux taillés pour la scène appelés à devenir de véritables classiques du groupe. Une alchimie intacte, illustrée notamment par Trust in Me, Hang by a Thread ou encore l'épique Slave to Master qui conclut l'album sur une note magistrale. À l'occasion de la sortie de ce nouvel opus, j'ai eu le plaisir de m'entretenir longuement avec Myles Kennedy et Mark Tremonti pour un échange fleuve placé sous le signe d'une franche camaraderie, une discussion à bâton rompu au cours de laquelle les deux piliers du groupe reviennent sur la conception de ce 8e album, les sessions d'enregistrement dans les mythiques studios 51-50, leur approche de l'instrument et bien plus encore, le tout émaillé d'anecdotes savoureuses autour d'Eddie Van Halen, Jimmy Page ou Jeff Buckley.
I don't know if I've really told this story, so that guitar will be with me till I take my last breath.
Voilà pour la présentation de cette vidéo. La rentrée musicale commence fort avec ce nouvel album d'Alter Bridge qui sera suivi d'une tournée française de 3 dates, dont un passage très attendu au Zénith de Paris le 18 février. Alors histoire de vous mettre l'eau à la bouche, je vous emmène à la rencontre de Myles Kennedy et Mark Tremonti. Bon visionnage.
Yeah, Mark and I both have a number of projects that we have developed or been a part of developing over the last few decades. And I think a lot of people look at that like, well, how do you, A, juggle all of that, and B, don't you worry that your creative juices are going to, kind of dry up? I think both of us have found that, interestingly enough, it's helped. I think having the opportunity to express yourself in a different way, maybe in a subgenre of what you're a part of, or like in Mark's case, something completely different, like the Frank Sinatra tribute. When it makes it so that when we come back to this, we kind of come into it with a clean palette, and you're like ready to go into this phase and this mindset, and it seems fresh. As an artist, you don't feel like everything is redundant. We really are incredibly lucky to have these outlets that people embrace and let us, continue to cultivate. It's crazy to think that after 2 decades, we're still doing this. When you enter into something like this, you're lucky if you can do 1 record, let alone 8, and have, people continue to care about what you do 20 years in. So yeah, we don't take any of that for granted, and we know we're among the luckiest. And we're the same group of guys. We haven't changed. Nobody's left the band. Nobody's been fired yet. I'm still waiting. Please don't fire me. But no, it's been a good ride. When will we see?
Simply because we were sitting around a table at the studio and somebody had brought up, what do you think we should call the record? Does anybody have any ideas? Myles thinks it was me. I can't remember saying it, but one of us said, we've never done a self-titled record. We all felt very good about this record. It's a good representation of what the band means after all these years of 20 years of being together. This will be the first record after our 20-year anniversary, and a lot of people are talking about that 20-year lifespan of the band, and figured why not do it, and why not couple it with album artwork that's very direct, very straightforward. Hopefully you start seeing tattoos popping up of that thing because it's nice, and maybe I'll tattoo some people.
Ooh, there you go. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, stepping into the hollowed walls of 5150 Studios for a band like us was something we'll never forget. We realized the gravity of the situation where there's no other bands outside of Van Halen family members' band to ever record there. So it was one of the biggest honors of our career, and when you're in a space like that and you see the pictures and it was left the way the guys, last used it. So it's incredibly inspiring, and it makes you want to up your game and try to be somewhat deserving of that honor. And I think it rubbed off on the record, hopefully.
Mark and I generally, before we go in the studio, like to know that we've got plenty of stuff ready to go. Neither one of us feel comfortable writing in the studio. We like to arrange in the studio, but we like to know that we've got all the riffs and ideas kind of ready to go, so we feel confident. And then it's a matter of taking those and getting with the band and getting with the producer, Elvis, and seeing what happens. And it's fun, but it's also extremely challenging. And that's where I think we really felt the kind of the ghosts of, whatever had been created in 5150 prior that helped elevate that process. I think, and I also think that knowing that we were going to be in 5150, it forced Mark and I to bring our A game, because the last thing you would do is walk in with a bunch of, subpar riffs, the church of riff, when you think of the stuff that had been created in there. So I think it just really was a motivational element to this record. And I think it's part of the reason the record is more built on riffs consistently. A lot of the riff is paramount. It's the hallmark of this band with melody. But at the same time, on a lot of records, we'll go on these kind of like journeys, and we'll take it, and there'll be a lot more dynamics, and maybe you'll have a little keyboards here and there and whatever. But with this one, because we were like, we have to make sure we have enough really strong riffs, because we're going to do this at 5150. We had almost too much to choose from. So that helped define the record.
I think Slave the Master came together exactly how you said. It was multiple songs that came together to become one idea. Initially, it was a demo that Myles had put into the Dropbox file. We share a Dropbox file with all the demos that myself and Myles put in there to present to the band. And at the time, it was about a 4.5 minute song that included the intro of the song, which was separate and written a long time ago before, as Myles had said. And then there was a verse and a chorus, and it just kind of ended after the chorus. So there's no arrangement down, the final arrangement. So we got into the studio, and I think Myles was like, we need one of your drop B riff kind of things. And I just wrote the riff section there, and we turned that into a part. Myles put a vocal over it. And then I had spent some time the night prior going over this idea that I really, really liked, and I presented to the guys. I'm like, I think this could be the outro of the song, and it feels like it could be the end of the record. So maybe the outro of the record, and it could just go on. It could be a fade out kind of a thing. And it turned out to be probably 5 minutes long at the end. And I'm glad the guys agreed with me that the part fit. And I think that part, it adds a dynamic to the song that makes it kind of have peaks and valleys. And we get to do our longest guitar solo in the history of the band on there. So we get 3 minutes of guitar soloing, and me and Myles both love it. And we were supposed to go back and forth on the guitar solo, like in our song Fortress. I think it was originally my idea, saying, hey, let's fans like it when we do that, when we go back and forth with the guitar, let's just do some licks and go back quickly. Then I called Myles. I'm like, sorry, but I don't think we should do the back and forth thing, because I just did this. I wrote this part, and it just kind of came out really naturally, the solo, and it lasted for 1.5 minutes. So Myles just did the same thing, and I think he felt the same way. Once you start playing over it, it just feels like you want to express yourself that long.
Mm-hmm. It's fun to solo over that
one. The solo for Slave the Master, I approached that with improvisation first and foremost. I'll just play the track multiple times, play over it. Once an idea sticks, I will try to next time improvise, put that in the place where it worked, and then build it piece by piece. But that song for me is in an open tuning, open D5 tuning, where all the scales that you're familiar with and all the chord voicings and all the open strings are different. So it's something that you have to allow yourself to make mistakes and experiment with. So it takes longer, but to me, it's more inspired. You know, I love writing guitar solos and alternate tunings because you're not going to sound like you're just ripping through pentatonics. You know, funny thing is you find the pentatonics somewhere else because you're so, you naturally want to go to them. But
it actually is, if I could touch on, you know, the tuning thing, because this is kind of one of our little secrets, is that, so he's in a kind of an open D5 tuning, but if I'm in I think with that one, I'm in like half step down with the drop. I drop the E string down to a low A or A flat. Like, so we're in different tunings, but that's part of what creates our sound. It creates a unique voicings because you have one guy who's utilizing one tuning, one guy who's utilizing another, and you put those together. It's kind of like, you know, Bill Evans is the piano player. Like, he was known for these crazy voicings because he had these really massive hands, and so you cover this broad spectrum. And that's kind of what we do in a strange way, and it's kind of a shortcut. I mean, but it's effective because you have the droning notes from his open tuning, and then you have the clusters that are created using more standard tuning, and they blend really well together. And we started doing that a long time ago, and it's really effective.
For the first record, it was just myself on the guitar, and we didn't realize that Myles, one, had the skills set that he does, and secondly, I didn't know he had the desire to play guitar. You know, it was just this straight, incredible singer that we all knew. Because in the early Mayfield 4 stuff, I didn't remember him playing solos and stuff with the Mayfield 4. It was very song based, very vocal based. And then one day he was at my house when we were writing a record, and I heard all this jazz coming out of the bedroom he was staying in, and I go to see what music he's listening to, and he had a guitar in his hands playing this jazz. And I joke, I'm like, "You son of a bitch, you never told me you're as good as this." And Myles is not a rhythm guitar player, you know. Me and Slash have both said, you know, he's a world-class player. And I think when I realized how good of a player he was, I think the band realized this is a new secret weapon of ours, you know, to have. I remember when I was a kid and I went to go see Queensryche, I believe it was. Queensryche was opening up for somebody, and they had 2 lead guitar players. And I was like, wow, a band with 2 lead guitar players, that's pretty cool. It's like Thin Lizzy, you know, but, and I always respected that. And so I was like, wow, we have that thing, that Thin Lizzy kind of thing that we can do. I love to sing, you know. I don't feel pressure when I sing because I'm thought of as a guitar player, and Myles is referred to as the singer when he loves the guitar. And he started out as a guitar player who just got tired of dealing with singers, so he became a singer himself. So we get to do what we love on both ends of the spectrum there, with taking the other person's role for a minute. And the more we've gone on over the years as a band, the more we've shared those responsibilities.
Yeah, you know, I have to just say, man, I told you I'd give you for saying nice things. There you go.
Thanks, man.
A 50. A 50. Wow, how did I get a 50? Our per diems are really good this week.
When will we see with open eyes?
When I got to the honor of playing with Van Halen a few times, and Eddie's like, he didn't know who I was at the time. He's like, "Who's the guitar player?" And he was showing me his new 5150 amplifier, and he sent one to me. And I said, "You know what, I really love your guitars. They play very nice." And he said, what color do you like? I said, "Black." And he comes knocking on the dressing room door, and the band was having some heated discussion, and we're like, well, we don't know who this is, so we didn't answer the door. Door keeps knocking, and in comes Eddie Van Halen. "Sorry, guys. Hey, I got your guitar." Brings it out of the case, taps on it. He's like, "Feels good." You know, gives me this guitar. And then after the show, you know how it is. This was Madison Square Garden. We're underneath Madison Square Garden, and there's press and people, hundreds of people trying to get to the Van Halen camp. Eddie's there with Valerie and Wolfie as a child. And he sees me out of the corner of his eye across all these hundreds of people trying to get to them. He runs over to me. He's like, "I forgot to tell you, you got to take two of the springs off the bar. That's how I set mine up." Gives me a kiss on the cheek and leaves. I'm like, come on. Eddie's a very generous, great. All my interactions with Eddie were amazing. Same with Alex and of course Wolfie.
Yeah, he was very generous. You probably had more interactions with him than I did. We were touring Walk the Sky, PRS players, right? But there was one thing, there's one song called In the Deep that required like a full-on dive bomb, like kind of like you'd need like a Floyd Rose. And I was like, it would be Tim knew, the Van Halen camp and everything. I said, do you think that there's like, they have some sort of guitar that has that kind of tremolo so I could mimic that sound that we did in the studio? He calls his buddy, and turns out Eddie's sitting in the car with him, and it's like on speakerphone, and Tim makes the request, our manager, and then all of a sudden Eddie chimes in and says, hey, I got that one guitar in the closet that I don't use. Just give him that one. And it was like a prototype for like the Kramer era Frankenstein. If someone would have told me that Eddie Van Halen one day was going to gift me a guitar. But he was incredible. That what he said is true. And I've heard countless stories about how Eddie would just give people guitars and was just so generous. So yeah, it says a lot about, who he was. Oh yeah, it's one of my most prized possessions, without a doubt. Like, I keep that in a very sacred spot. No one knows where it is, and I don't know if I've really told this story. So that guitar will be with me till I take my last breath. Initially it was kind of like something. It was. We were hoping was going to help us, and it has for sure made life easier. But where's it going? What is this AI thing going to turn into? It makes us not needed is it going to take all of our jobs? Is it going to make it so that, we are just basically sitting around all day, not sure what to do with ourselves because everything is kind of being taken care of? And I'm kind of a firm believer in human beings want to have purpose, and we want to know that, we've got a goal to shoot for. Otherwise, what is that saying?
Idle hands get in trouble.
No, not that, but close, something like that. But yeah, so I think that's the question. Where do we go? Where's this going? And because the song kind of portrays a dystopian future possibility. And so, the idea that it's out of control, I was envisioning in my head that it's, fast forward 10 years and it's a very different world. So, we'll see. Well, trying to stay optimistic, but it was fun to kind of play with that concept. For years, I was using either McCarty's or single cuts. And even though I had a different pickup, it's still it's still mahogany body with the rosewood fretboard. And so it was still our sounds were kind of similar, right? I found that once I switched to this signature model, and it's, swamp ash body, maple neck and fretboard, which is a totally different animal. I mean, like, that makes such a difference than obviously the pickup. So now I feel like there's a really nice separation. It's just like the tunings. It kind of broadens it. It's not quite as narrow. It's wider now. He's got
amps as well,
and the amps as well. There's been a little change for me. I still use the Diesel VH4 with this project, which I've used now for a long time. That with the Herbert as well, and then integrated the EVH. The 50 watt, what do you call it? The 5150.
5153.
Right. We discovered it when we were at 5150. I had never really played through one, and I was like, wow, this sounds really great. So blend those two sounds. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, and I have a signature PRS amplifier, the MT100, and I mix that with, there's a new great amp, the company's called Synergy, and they've partnered with all kinds of brands like Diesel, Boogie, Soldano, and I use the Soldano preamp section and the Fender TDLX preamp section for cleans and dirties. And I partner that with the MT100. And then recently I've fallen in love again with the 5153, and Wolfie was kind enough to lend me and Myles one, and they sound great on record and live. So mixed with, so in my ears, I have actually 3 amps mixed in my ears.
I was in a movie with Jason Bonham called Rockstar. And I remember one time in between one of our rehearsals, I think. I just sat down next to him and we just started talking. I was like, hey man, I just want to tell you, your father's legacy would really, what an incredible gift that band was to to music in general. Fast forward a few years later, like 2000, I think it was 2008. And we were on the festival run over here doing, I think we just done one of the German festivals. And I get this text from Jason, who I hadn't talked to since we did the movie. So it had been years. And he said, hey, can you call me? I've got a favor to ask. And I was like, okay. And thinking that a friend might've wanted tickets to a show or something. Basically, he lays out, like, hey man, we're jamming here. I'm jamming with some friends. Would you be open to coming to London this weekend to jam? I'm like, I'm on tour, man. I don't know. And he's like, told me what was going on. I'm jamming with who the friends were. I'm like, I'll be right there. It was one afternoon that changed my life. It was the afternoon I was playing with my little brother and we were listening to the radio. Eruption and You Really Got Me came on by Van Halen. And then a few hours later, A Whole Lot of Love came on. That was the afternoon that kind of defined my life. And if you would have told me that day that one day, not only will you record in the studio where, Eddie makes his music, but you will also get to jam with those guys from Led Zeppelin. I'm still not sure if this is a matrix or if this is a simulation. It's got to be.
Satriani's right above you.
There you go. I love Joe Satriani.
Release the anger, move on.
The most emotional moment during that period when I was jamming with them was when we were playing the Rain song. We were jamming the Rain song, and that's always been my favorite Zeppelin track. And I'll never forget, we get to that part where John Paul Jones has that descending part on the mellotron and that haunting, beautiful moment. And I remember when I was supposed to come in and start singing again, I had to kind of turn away. I was tearing up. Like, it was just like, it was more than goosebumps. It was just a very special moment that I will never, ever, ever forget. Maybe they were on like a little Zoom record. It wasn't like a legit recording studio. People think we went in the studio. It was just a little rehearsal studio in London. So I don't think any studio quality recordings exist.
The Tremonti Sinatra project is one of my favorite things I've ever done in my life. And it was inspired by my daughter who was diagnosed with Down syndrome. I actually wearing a shirt today. This is the National Down Syndrome Society, which is the largest Down syndrome organization in the country and in the United States. And when we got the diagnosis that my daughter was going to be born with Down syndrome, like the light bulb went off. I was right at the moment. I was very, very into Frank Sinatra. I was practicing singing like Frank Sinatra for some reason. I had no intentions of doing anything but just enjoying it. And then when I started improving and spending more time singing than I was playing guitar at the time, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So when we got the diagnosis, it's like, you know what, there's a reason for this. I called my manager and said, I want to do a record of Frank Sinatra covers and do it for charity to raise money and awareness for the community. And since then, it's become our life's mission to do everything we can for this community, because it's such a beautiful group of folks. And since we've started, we've raised millions of dollars from the generosity of the people who have just jumped all on board. And we've opened up a clinic. There's one of the largest healthcare providers in the country. It's called Advent Health. We partnered with Advent Health and opened up the very first lifespan Down syndrome clinic in the Southeast. Nobody ages out. And the testimonies we've seen from the families has been one of the most satisfying and heart-warming things in my life that I've seen. And Myles and the guys were nice enough to perform at the last fundraiser we did last week, where there was only a few hundred people there, but we raised almost $300,000.
He does.
Of course,
He actually does.
Huh.
He can. Yeah, he keeps that hidden. He keeps that. He can. I know he can sing.
That's got to be his next project.
I know, right? I mean, he can do it for the Sinatra record.
Yeah, come on.
You guys can do a duet.
Yeah, I would love it.
Yeah, I think the contrast is kind of what, the dynamics and it's kind of like we're talking about with the having two different styles as far as vocalists, as far as guitar players, it's like, there's a duality. It's a yin and yang. And we try to incorporate that with our arrangements as well. Instead of just one thing, one flavor all the time, we want there to be some sort of diversity sonically and have it. And it's fun too, is I remember, when I think of bands along the way that had like two singers or two guitar players, when I was a kid and I was listening to Judas Priest and is this KK Downing or is this Glenn Tipton or with singers, when Deep Purple had, Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale and it just keeps it interesting so that there's different textures and timbres and so yeah, it definitely is something we're trying to integrate more of. Diagnosed with that probably 20 some odd years ago, and it really freaked me out. I thought I was done. I mean, it was just, I'll never forget the morning I woke up and I realized the ringing wasn't going away. I mean, I was absolutely terrified. Essentially, a lot of it's technology that has allowed me to continue to do this. And the technology is those in-ear monitors that you can use on stage. And I'm very aware of how loud I'm listening. I'm not one of these people who just turns it, wide open and just want to feel the music. I'm very conservative with my volume. And that has maintained my hearing really well. It hasn't gotten much worse since that initial diagnosis. Without a shadow of a doubt, had that technology not existed, I would have burnt, my ears would be done by, they'd be shot, I'd be half deaf. It sustained my career. So what I would advise to anybody who has tinnitus is not to freak out. Just be aware of your listening levels from moving forward. And I have a belief that in a way, the human body is a fascinating machine. And I feel like tinnitus or tinnitus is kind of your warning. It's your body's way of saying, you know what, you've been listening too loud. You need to be cognizant of that. You need to take care of your ears. And it's, if you are aware of this moving forward, you can just maintain this and you'll keep the majority of your hearing and you won't, you always have to go, what? I can't hear you. I almost didn't do it. I mean, that was a very last minute decision. I kind of had to be coerced into doing it because I felt like that was sacred ground. I loved the record that he released, live in that venue, from years prior. It was a record I listened to a lot. So I knew of the history he had with this community. I mean, you guys were one of the first to really accept Jeff, and you got it. So we had a friend, Matt, who had that guitar at the time before, sold it to Matt, the other Matt from Muse, who should have that guitar. That's Matt and our manager Tim were like, you should play Hallelujah tonight. And I'm like, this is, I don't know about that, And I don't know what it was. Something just kind of happened. I had the guitar in the dressing room. I was kind of playing, and I just felt like, as a tribute to, it's just gonna take myself out of the equation. This is simply a tribute to what he did with this incredible Leonard Cohen song. And I'm going to stand on the stage where he played the same song at one point, and I'm just going to, this is a tribute for him. And what he was the guy that when I heard him, I was like, oh, you can, because he came out at a point when grunge was king and people were kind of, it was a different thing. And I didn't know where I fit. I didn't know where to go. Right. And I heard him, I was like, wow, okay, cool. So that was an important moment for me.
I grabbed 3 records out of this pile, and it's kind of a good variety because, I always would say my biggest influences growing up were speed metal, darkest, the heaviest, coolest thing. And at the time, Metallica and Slayer were kind of the 2 bands that I liked the most growing up. Metallica is one of my all-time favorites. This is my favorite record of all time. This is the record that made me a music fan. Pair that with a band like Journey, who had that melodic, just genius, and you combine those 2, that's kind of my influences. 70s soft rock, which kind of Journey was more 80s, but more polished version of that, mixed with speed metal and metal in general. It's kind of like how I got developed my sound. And then this is TV on the Radio is just a band that there's not a lot of new bands, or that not that they're new, but new bands that I discovered later on in life that I really gotten into. TV on the Radio is one of the bands that in the past 5 years or so that I discovered that I really like. So that's 3 for me.
That's good.
Those are some good ones.
I'm going to I can just kind of take this here. The Clash, that was something I, went through phases as a kid, when I first discovered, the first thing that turned me on to music was seeing Stevie Wonder on Sesame Street. That was the moment for me. But then years later, in my early to teenage years, when what was happening in the UK in particular with bands like The Clash. So that was what kind of got me into more rock initially, and then it kind of went into metal from there. And then in my late teens, I discovered jazz, and Oscar Peterson was to me like my first experience with like a jazz guy who could shred. I mean, it's like when he does Caravan live, it's like, it's amazing.
Oh.
Yeah.